Hi, it's Angie with News OK, and I'm here with Sherrel Jones, who is our Passion for Food columnist. And today we're learning how to braise vegetables and fruit.
Right.
Like a roast, right?
Well, sort of, except
Okay.
vegetables, of course, cook a lot faster than a pot roast that you're going to simmer for 5 or 6 hours.
Very true.
And always in braising, we sort of have steps that go along the way. And in the beginning, you've got to have something with fat. And so because we're so conscious about everything,
Right.
I used to make braised cabbage with a couple of or even more pieces of bacon in the pan, and that was my fat that I started with. Well, and you know, with various health issues that arise as we age, I decided it was better to use some kind of oil that was friendlier to our arteries. So this is an answer to that, and still have big, bold flavor. It's not the same as bacon, but it's a little different. So we're combining some flavoring agents, and we have some onions over here that we're going to add, and we have apples and plums, and this is a nice fall medley.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's all the red things, and in fact we could use, why don't you hand me the white onions, and you could use one of those big red onions or purple onions there with the purple cabbage, and that'd be great. But today we're going to use the white ones because I want you to see how the browning begins on the surface of the onion. Onions actually have some sugar in them, so they start browning nicely, and that gives us our flavor. You find all these little bits of browning things start clinging to the pan.
Right. And tell us about the oil.
And we're going to use grapeola today, which is a grapeseed oil, and this works really nicely. And we're just going to start it out on a fairly high heat, and we'll put enough in there to just coat the bottom of the pan. And I love braising because it combines several techniques that we use in cooking, terms that you see and you're thinking, oh, what does that mean? And so this combines browning, and it combines the braising technique, which is cooking over a period of time. In this case, it's only going to be maybe 15 minutes or so. And then it also combines deglazing, and so we're going to use a liquid to deglaze, and then we'll put the lid on it and let it sort of steam and braise nicely. And so we'll start with some of our onions in the pan. We'll let them get going.
You can hear a sizzle.
Yeah, you can hear a little sizzle. That's what you want. And I'm going to turn this up just a little bit so we can get it started. And we don't want to crowd the pan in the beginning when we're starting to brown things. And onions are going to get a little bit brown on the surface. And we're going to add some sliced apples, which is really nice with this combination, and that adds a little sweetness to it. Now you could do several different things. You could add, if you want a little tart along with that, you could add some ginger to it, or even a couple of shakes of Tabasco sauce to it and kind of zip it up a little bit. And the plums in the fall, you know, they cook so nicely, and I like to, and they're going to add another little touch of sweetness. You could braise plums all by themselves, even in some butter, and you could oven braise them. And then when they start cooking and bubbling really nicely, then you could use some pour some cream over them to
That'd be nice.
Deglaze, and the cream becomes sort of a caramelly sauce, and the plums are in it.
So do you want these to cook for a
these
while
we'll let these cook just a little bit, and then we'll be adding our cabbage to it. And I might just move this over here so we can, that'll work. We'll go ahead and put some of our cabbage in because the onions are starting to cook, and they sort of make a layer on the bottom. And then the cabbage comes in. It's a pretty color, and it's even pretty after it's cooked. Now, I love this dish cold as well. Another thing you could do if you didn't want to use bacon, if you have some nice sausages. Oh, wow, this is so good with sausage. It has the real wow effect. kind of thing.
It's
and
okay
you
to
can
kind
make
of
it a
cover
meal.
the onions.
Yeah, we're going to do that now,
Okay.
and it kind of just pushes them. Now, notice our steam is escaping through here, so I'm not totally doing it. I'm kind of pushing this along a little bit. The onions are browning, and we're taking them a step further into an actual braise in the oil. You can see how they're doing. Now the cabbage is also going to braise, and so start braising. So we're going to add some of our apples.
So that's actually going to change the taste a little bit of the onion.
Oh, it will. It'll add. See, the onions and the cabbage are not as sweet as the apples and the plums.
Interesting.
So it's kind of an interesting way to cook them, and that leaves a really nice flavor. And, now, when the cabbage starts to braise a little bit, let's see how that goes. See, some of the cabbage is already starting to brown a little bit on the edges here.
Right.
So when it starts to do, we'll just keep tossing this a little bit. Add the rest of the plums and the apples. Now, I've got the heat turned up a little bit. I'm pushing this along. Now, we're actually braising now because it's making its own sort of liquidy glaze.
Okay.
And we're going to help this along somewhat. I'm going to let some of these apples be down on the bottom of the pan so they can kind of caramelize. We'll help that along in the cooking process. We'll put a lid on it. Obviously, this is starting to brown nicely. See how the plums are browning off and the apples and even the cabbage. And we're going to deglaze this pan and turn the fire down and let it kind of simmer. Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take this. We're going to use today, now you could use red wine if you wanted to, or apple juice.
Okay.
Because we're using red vegetables, I decided to use a little pomegranate juice.
Oh, there you go.
So you could use orange juice.
Wow.
That'd be great. So I'm just going to put enough liquid to kind of cover the bottom of the pan.
Okay.
And then we'll stir this around. Now that adds a little sweet and tart. If you're familiar with the flavor of pomegranate juice, it adds a little tart and sweet to it. So you're getting a layering of flavors. And because this is now, we're going to reduce the fire down so that it just doesn't even boil anymore. You can just kind of see it calm down.
Oh, wow.
And we'll put this on.
That looks good.
And now it's going to braise for a little while.
Great.
And then in maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, it'll be ready to eat. The fruits are cooked and the apples are cooked through. It could braise another 10 minutes if we wanted to, or you could just enjoy it like this. It depends on the timing with the rest of the meal that you're going to have. If you wanted this to be a main course, I would suggest adding some sausage to it, or little chunks of, if you have leftover ham from the holidays, and you have that in your freezer, you could add that.
This is a pretty easy way to do it.
Oh, it's perfectly easy, and that would make a whole meal out of it. But I like it like this, and plus, this is good cold for lunch.
Yeah.
The next day, because the longer you braise it, the more the flavors blend together.
There you
go.
And
that's
in
the thing to
your
do.
column, you actually braised a couple of different vegetables.
Yes, I did.
Right?
We, I love, and most Oklahomans love, okra. And you can use fresh or frozen for that recipe. So if you have a little fresh okra left in your garden, it's perfect time to do it. And we've included that recipe and this one.
Yes, so just check out
column.
the Oklahoman, the Passion for Food column of Sherrel Jones, and you can find that recipe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy braising.
Let's see it.